Hi guys, Geoffrey here. In this video, I want to show you why your partner is really struggling to believe in your changes and really trust in your changes to the point where she will eventually come back into the relationship. And I want you to stick around to the very end of this video because I see this as a problem for a lot of people where they're getting their partner to see their changes, but they're not really feeling the changes. And these 5 things I'm about to show you, I haven't seen or heard many people discuss these 5 things before. So I want you to stick around to the very end of this video because I'm going to show you also some perspective shifts and approach shifts that you need to focus on to really get yourself some better results for yourself. And in case you're new to this channel, my name is Geoffrey and I help men in long-term relationships or in marriages with the right skills, with the right knowledge as well to be able to design a thriving relationship even though you're the only one really trying to save the relationship right now. So if you want more content on this topic, be sure to subscribe to this channel and also click that bell button as well to be notified when I post new videos every single week. And before I begin this video, I also want to let you know that the masterclass on the 5 proven steps to rebuilding your relationship from the ground up is still open. So if you want to join that masterclass or if you want to submit your application for the Relationships Revival program, then be sure to stick around to the very end of this video as well for the announcement on how you can join both those things. And reason number 5 of why your partner is struggling to really trust in your changes is when people fall into what we call the paradox of logical appeals. So just to define this really quickly, the paradox of logical appeals is when you are trying to use logic to convince your partner of your changes, of something that you've done, of how you're different. But in the process of convincing your partner of your changes, you're actually showing through your actions the opposite of what you're claiming, of what your words are saying. And a very great example of this, and a classic example of this, is when people are trying to control their partner or convince their partner logically that they're no longer controlling. And so here, let's say you're having a conversation with your partner and you're trying to tell your partner, hey, I'm not controlling anymore, but she doesn't really believe you. She says to you, I don't believe it. You're still controlling. You're still a controlling prick. And when she says that, you instantly double down on you trying to logically convince your partner and you say, no, here's all the reasons why I'm not controlling. And so here, your words are saying that you're not controlling, but you're actually, by imposing yourself like this, you're trying to control her into believing that you're not controlling. And if you look at that statement, that's very paradoxical. And that's really what we call the paradox of logical statements. And so the mistake that a lot of people make here is that when trying to showcase your changes, you're trying to use too much of logic, too much of justifications, too much explaining to try to get your partner to logically understand that you have changed. But what I want you to do instead is to really start to focus on creating that safety and trust and allowing your partner to feel emotionally your changes instead of you claiming and explaining your changes away. And you can do this in a lot of forms. And we can spend a whole hour or 2 hours talking about this. So I'm not going to go too deep into this right now, but I'm going to give you 3 examples of how this might sound like in your everyday conversations. So the first way we can do this is simply by deeply understanding your partner. So for example, if your partner were to say to you, I don't believe you've changed, you're still a controlling person, instead of trying to explain yourself, just lean into it with questions and say, oh, it seems like I may still appear to be controlling to you. You know, I don't want to be controlling, and so maybe there's a blind spot here that I'm missing. I guess tell me more about what you're seeing. What makes you think I'm still controlling? I would love to know. And so here, instead of explaining yourself, you're just leaning into it with deep understanding and trying to understand where your partner is coming from. And the beauty about this is that you are showing through your actions here that you are not controlling. And in fact, the implication that you're making here is that you understand that there is a problem, and 2, you understand the gravity and the importance of trying to fix and solve and better yourself here. So this actually speaks louder than words doing this. Another example of what you can say if your partner says like you're still controlling, I don't believe in your changes, is something like, hey, I totally understand where you're coming from. In the past, what I would have done is I would spend all this time trying to explain to you how much I've changed, but I realized that, part of my growth here is realizing that I'm not perfect. And I want to thank you first and foremost for actually pointing out the things I don't know and the things I may be missing, my blind spots. And so here's using a bit of a combination from the first approach, but also the second approach of understanding that she cares more about the process over the product. So a lot of people care so much about the product and they try to convince their partner that they're the perfect person already. But here, what we're saying is, look, I'm never gonna be the perfect person, but my changes is that now I have the perfect process. And the perfect process requires that I just admit and be vulnerable to my mistakes. So instead of you trying to explain yourself, you're just saying, hey, it seems like I'm still not perfect yet. That's okay. Let me learn. And another example of what you can say here is when you're simply giving your partner this true sense of freedom. So you might say, for example, in the past, I would be trying to control you into coming back and into convincing you of my changes. I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm still going to change the way I want to change, and change in this genuine way. And I would just encourage you to just see my changes. But if you see it, great. If you don't see it, that's totally fine. And you can do whatever you want based on that decision. I'm not going to try to control you anymore. Right? So here's another example of how you can communicate on that deeper emotional level or not on the logical level. And all these 3 examples that I'm showing here is going to be a lot more powerful than any justifications, any logical appeals that you can make. And now, reason number 4 of why your partner is really struggling to really believe in your changes is that you're still too tethered to what we call the outcome or the goal of getting her back. So a lot of people here, they're really, really obsessed about getting their partner back. And I see this for very early students in my program, and also sometimes even in the YouTube comments. When I talk about, let's say, the internal changes, I talk about identity shifting, I talk about the subtle changes, the deeper changes that doesn't really directly relate to helping you save your relationship. The first question they will ask is always, well, how does it get my partner back? And it's as if let's say they can see a direct correlation of how this gets their partner back, they will do it. But if it's a deeper change that they cannot directly see the path to how this can get their partner back, then they won't do it. And this really shows the mindset that people are in, that they really only care about doing something only if it can help them get their partner back. And so the sole reason they're doing something is to get their partner back. And while this sounds logical and this sounds correct in the surface, this is really actually very toxic, because for 3 reasons. The first is everything you do now will come with strings attached. And you might think that you're doing a good job of hiding this, but your partner will feel here that whatever you do, whatever nice things you do, whatever favors you do, whatever changes you make, you are really expecting something in return from her at the end of the day. And when you receive a gift, when you receive something, and you can sense here that the other person is expecting something in return, you no longer can receive that gift properly. Because 1, it feels a lot more ingenuine, right? That you're not changing here because you want to, because of some very noble intrinsic reason, but you're changing because you simply want to get her back. And when you have this motivation, not only will everything you do become ingenuine, but it also become very impermanent. Because if you don't actually enjoy the process of changing in the internal state and changing for changing itself, and you only change because you want to have, that means that your motivation depends on whether you're going to get that outcome or not. So a lot of people, for example, when they realize that their partner is resisting in the short term and they're not getting the outcome in the short term, they tend to be very demotivated in the processes. Or even the opposite can happen when sometimes people come back, their partners come back, they lean closer, and when they spot that their partner's leaning closer, they start to get demotivated in the process as well, because they fundamentally do not enjoy the process. They are only doing the process not because they enjoy it, but because they want to get something out of it. And when you're hot and cold like this, it really tells your partner a lot about your motivations, a lot about why you're changing, the reasons behind your changes. And she can sense here that your changes will never be permanent, because once she comes back, once things are better, once that reason to change goes away, then your changes will go away as well, and will go back to the way it was. The important part to understand here is that whatever changes that you need to make, they need to be what we call identity-based changes, as opposed to most people having outcome-based changes. But this is really about learning to do and learning to change because you are, not because you want to have. And this is about learning to love the process of changing and the act of changing and your changed state intrinsically. You do it because you love it, not because you do it because you want to have. You want to get an outcome. And this means that you need to be able to obsess and still enjoy and still love the process despite whatever outcomes you're facing, either good or bad, despite the fact that your partner's resisting and not believing your changes, despite the fact that you may not even get the outcome. And this is crucial because it's only at this spot, when people get to this spot in my program, their partner really begins to believe their changes, because now their partner knows that there is really no reason why I should doubt or I should be suspicious of his changes anymore, because I've given him so many tests and reasons to why he shouldn't change. But no matter what reasons I give, he keeps showing me that he's changing because he is deeply changed. His being, his identity has changed. And when that happens, it's really difficult for your partner to doubt your changes. And so it's really funny here when people send me emails or send comments and say, oh, I don't want to join your program. I don't want to change anymore. What's the point of going through this journey if my partner says there's no hope anyway? Well, the fact that you are saying that, the fact that you're thinking that, means that you're proving your partner right, and that your changes was never real, was never permanent, was never genuine anyway. So I want you to see the paradox here of thinking, and I want you to understand the value and the importance of getting to this identity-based changes. Now, the important thing to note here also is that this does not mean that you're just very indifferent. So again, we talk about this in a lot of our videos, in that when you get away from that place of need, most people go to the other extreme of being indifferent. So they ask the question like, well, does this mean like I'm not even supposed to even try to get my partner back? No. What you want to do is to get in the middle place of what we call wanting. And the right processes, the right internal processes and the right understanding of the framework should get you naturally to this place of wanting. Which brings me to my next point, which is that the third reason why a lot of people struggle to have their partner believe their changes is that the conversations are often very surface level, and they don't really challenge the status quo and challenge the confirmation bias, the negative confirmation bias she has about you right now. So this is also a reason why I'm not a fan of things like smart contact. Because one, you create this paradox when you're doing smart contact where if you're, let's say, waiting for your partner to bring up conversations first, the tough conversations first, you have to understand that if your relationship is in the state where it's struggling, the one thing that is broken is what we call emotional safety. So it's the ability for your partner to really express the full extent of their emotions to you is limited, is handicapped. So if you're waiting for your partner to bring up conversations to you when there is no emotional safety, that conversation will never happen. And when this doesn't happen, when these conversations don't happen, then you have to also understand that your partner is feeling this lack of emotional safety because of all the negative confirmation bias she has about you. And the thing about confirmation bias is that it can get perpetuated without any new external events happening. So, for example, you feel this yourself when someone said something mean to you. You could be sitting on your couch and you could just be replaying that event over and over again in your head. And before you know it, you go from slightly displeased to really hating that person. Well, nothing new happened. The person didn't do anything new. The only thing that happened was that your confirmation bias perpetuated all these stories. And when you are not having the crucial conversations that you need to have, you're just letting all this negative confirmation bias really run rampant in your partner's heads. And this is what happened to a lot of my clients who joined my program at first after having done smart contact, is they find that doing smart contact and avoiding the tough conversations actually may cause more damage than it does good. So it's not like you are avoiding the tough conversations and you're just avoiding the negative. You're not just neutral. This is actually gonna let things go downwards, go backwards. So if you want to see a story on this, I wanna leave a link up above my head here to a client story of mine. But what I want you to think about now is to start being a fearless but surgical campaigner. So you need to understand how to begin the right conversations and the proper conversations, the challenging conversations. And I want you to be fearless. But I want you to be fearless, not like in a style of Rambo, where you're just peppering her with questions, you're just trying to bombard her phone. That's not what we mean. What we mean is you have to be a surgeon. You have to be very surgical. You have to enter with the right questions, with the right words, with the right tones, with the right ways of navigating and steering that conversation along the way. And this is where we talk about the crucial nature of the 3 layers of changes. That to do this properly, not only do you need to understand the frameworks, but you also need to understand the right internal shifts to keep you able to do the frameworks. And you also need to understand the identity shifting. You need to understand the self-esteem boost. And just like what my client is saying here, basically, only when you understand all these 3 layers do you finally understand how to execute and be a surgical and fearless campaigner at the same time. Now let's go to reason number 2 of why your partner is really struggling to believe your changes. And that's the fact that the changes are not permeating to the subtle. So the mistake that a lot of people make here is that they are changing the obvious things they do, but they're not really changing the subtle things they do. And the hard part about this is that the subtle things you do is not often conscious. So you're only changing what you're conscious of, but you're not changing what you're not conscious of. So for example, here, they might change the way they talk, the words they choose. They might try to do nice things here and there. They might go to the gym. All these obvious things that people do to try to showcase their changes, but what they're not doing is they're not focusing on the micro expressions, the microtones that they have when they're having tough conversations. They're not looking at how are they responding during moments that are unplanned, when they're getting some curveballs left and right. But it's these very subtle things, your micro expressions, microtones that a lot of people may not be aware of, that either creates or destroys trust on that emotional level. And the reason why this happens is that your partner knows that the obvious stuff, like you going to the gym, you doing nice things for the kids, you doing your chores, whatever it is, that's really easy to fake. But what's really hard to fake are the subtle stuff, the micro expressions. And when your partner is trying to understand and look at your actions and see, can I believe his changes? She's looking for the subtle, not the obvious stuff. And so if you're not working on the subtle stuff, then you're in big trouble. And so if you want to think about how to create the changes in the subtle, you have to understand here that the tactics and the techniques and the frameworks that we talk about of how to talk to your partner, what to do, is literally less than 5% of what it takes to try to get your partner to feel your changes. But beneath these frameworks, beneath the tactics, it needs to be backed up by the right paradigm shift, the right identity shift, the untethering, the process of untethering, growing your self-esteem. So it takes a lot of these internal shifts that are a lot more subtle to allow the obvious to seem more genuine, to seem more real, to seem more permanent. And again, I can't get too deep into this right now, so if you want to learn more about this, I would really encourage you to join me in my masterclass. Talk about all the different layers, the changes that you need beyond just the techniques of what to do, what to say. Now let's go to reason number one, and this is the most common reason of why most people struggle to get their partner to believe in their changes. And it's the fact that their changes are good. They have changed, they're different for sure, but the changes are not great. So the important thing you need to understand here is that it's actually very easy to get your partner to see your changes. You know, when people join my program, their partner literally says to my students that they see their changes within the first week, within a couple of days. That's really easy. And what I noticed here also is that, you know, most people's understanding of what it means to change, they get it from books, they get it from other videos, they get it from other courses, they get it from other self-help stuff. And they have defined, let's say, I can improve from level 1 to level 5. And they think that level 5 is really the highest level of self-improvement there is. So when their partner starts to tell them like, hey, I see your changes, they start to get really big-headed. And they say, okay, great. This confirms to me that level 5 is really the level I want to be at. But what I want you to understand is getting your partner to see your changes is the easy part, but getting your partner to feel your changes on a deeper level, that's the really, really difficult part. And my clients actually take 6 to 12 months of really impeccable performance before they can get to the point where they can really show their partner the trueness and the genuineness of their changes. And when their partner starts to really break down their walls, break down their suspicions, break down their doubts, and really begin to believe their changes. And I want you to realize here that whatever you think is the level of change that you can achieve and you should be able to attain, I want you to multiply it by 10. And I actually mean that because, you know, time and time again, when people join our program, they join our program thinking that they know a lot. They have done a lot of years and a lot of work into self-development. But when they join the program and they realize that, hey, level 5 is not the highest level anymore, it's actually a level 50 now. And if you don't believe me here, I want you to watch a lot of my client stories who many have spent close to 50 grand, $50,000 on other programs, on self-help, on leadership courses, etc. And they've never found anything like the program that we have in Relationship Revival. And I realize that what I'm saying here may sound very salesy, may sound very pushy, may sound very pompous and proud. But I also want you to understand here that you don't know what you don't know. Meaning that you can't use the same set of knowledge that created the problem in the first place to solve your problem. A lot of you may be skeptical of my claims that I'm making here, but when you're skeptical, I want you to ask yourself, what knowledge are you using to be skeptical? Most likely it's still either similar or the same knowledge that you used to get you in this problem in the first place. And you can't use the same knowledge that got you in the problem to solve your problem. And so if you want to understand just how deep we can go in terms of changes and explore the multi-layers of what it takes to really get your partner to really feel your changes in a deep way, it might take time, but when you do it right, she will feel your changes. So if you want to know more about that process, I want you to join me in my masterclass on the 5 proven steps to rebuilding your relationship from the ground up. In that masterclass, I'll show you the exact process that has allowed my clients to get massive results despite being in very dire situations. So if you want to join me in that masterclass, you can click the link above my head. And also at the end of this masterclass, we'll give you the opportunity to apply, submit your application for the Relationships Revival program, so you can do so then as well. And if you want a guide that can help you understand what some of these frameworks are and why it takes so much internal work to be able to execute these frameworks well, then you can download the guide I have for you above my head or also down below this video as well. And finally, if you want to join a community where you can post your questions, talk about your questions, and have a member of my team answer them for you, then you can join me in my free Facebook group down below this video as well. For now, if you enjoyed this video, if you found it to be eye-opening, feel free to smash that like button. It really helps the channel out and gets this video to a lot more people so they can benefit from this as well. And feel free to subscribe to the channel as well for more content like this one. In the meantime, if you have any questions, comments, just leave a comment below. I would love to hear from you. For now, I will see you in the next video, and I'm going to leave you with this couple of other videos here that can allow you to design a thriving relationship, even if you're the only one trying to save it right now. For now, I will see you in the next video.